Now, I want to welcome on stage Zsofia and Ian. They are former students from CU, Master in Business Analytics, and they are working as a consulting at Volantic. They bridge data science and business for planning a business project. And they are going to talk about connected planning use case.
Hello, is this working? Yes.
Okay, now this is working as well.
Cool.
Like the DJs.
Exactly.
Oh, you might want to have this. Sorry.
Oh,
One
yeah.
second, technicalities.
Thank you.
It's nice to be back. Welcome to the second Data Jamboree at CU. My name is Zsofia. A quick little introduction. I'm a CU grad. I graduated not so long ago in 2024, and now I'm working as an Anaplan data consultant at Volantic. And my main focus lies in financial planning and analysis, but I also take projects in workforce planning, which is very interesting. And Ian, my friend, former classmate and colleague.
Yes, my name is Ian, and as Zsofia mentioned, we were colleagues at CEU together in the Business Analytics program, and now we are working together at Volantic. I work at Volantic as an Anaplan consultant, and my focus is on FP&A projects.
Great,
Cool.
Thank you. So before we talk about the use case that we were preparing for you today, I want to talk a little bit about Volantic. So I know you guys know that there are many consultancies out there, but what makes Volantic a little bit more special is that we have a very wide background in what kind of products we offer, from project management, data, AI, and so on. We specialize in planning, so mainly business planning. And I guess our job and our goal is for companies and organizations who are not very data literate and they are not very digitalized, we try to bring them back to 2025. And we think, Volantic and also Ian and I think that digital adaptation is such a key in 2025, especially in the age of AI, that we want to help these companies. So I guess what happens is that when companies are out there, and especially in the planning business and the planning sector, they would ask, okay, what kind of tools do we have to implement? What kind of tools should we use? How do we use them? Are we using Miro? Are we using something else? And I guess Volantic is just there to help this process, to help them through, to implement these things and deploy and just support them throughout this journey. Just a little bit about our projects. So our projects usually follow an Agile project management, which is, I think, most of you are familiar with, but just a little bit of introduction to that. So our day-to-day life usually looks like this, especially with a project, is that the project starts. We usually sit down with the client face-to-face. We do a project scoping. We are very interested in what they want to achieve, what kind of tool they want to implement, and we are just looking at the data sources. We define the success criteria. And then the next step, which is very important, is we receive lots of business data. It can be financial business data, it can be supply chain, workforce planning. It's very dependent on the project. And then we take a very good look on, okay, is this data clean? Is it messy? How does it look like? What is the master data? What is the transactional data? And I guess we just define all these model structure and dependencies before we start building, which is number 3. Then we start building the calculation logic, we start planning models, and then we integrate the data sources, often with API, and then we just configure user inputs, and then we define what kind of reporting would look the best, what do they need, what is the user request that they want to see, what kind of dashboards, bar charts, and so on. And then in the end, we just do a lot of testing, we conduct a lot of interviews, usually face-to-face. We really want to understand what they actually need so that we can implement something that they will use and it will be sustainable. And I guess that sums up our daily routine, which is a lot of stand-ups, a lot of data deep dives, and also we do a lot of technical stuff such as model building, a little bit of programming, as you could say that, some client requests, and eventually that adds up to a lot of client interactions. So we will talk about this later, but data work is not only technical, it's also very communicational and it's very interactional. But yeah, and you might ask, what is Anaplan that you saw before, what kind of consultants we are? So yeah, Ian, the word is yours.
Yes, so how are we doing these implementations? Volantic has many partners and we have different softwares that we would implement for our clients, but the tool that Zsofia and I are primarily using to implement is called Anaplan. Anaplan is an enterprise planning software that specializes in financial planning, supply chain, sales and workforce planning projects, and many other use cases. But the primary takeaway here is what we're trying to do is bring our clients and our planners to doing connected planning rather than disconnected planning, disconnected Excels. We're trying to bring that together because data work is connected. And that leads us to our first point here that I would like to talk about with Anaplan is in order to do a data project, you need data, of course. And with Anaplan, we have the ability to bring data in with manual imports. You can also have API connections bringing the data into Anaplan. Once we have the data, we are able to connect users with that data, allowing them to make manual inputs or adjustments to the business logic, with finally on the other end having data connected via API leading out of Anaplan. So the idea is that it is a fully connected software for our users to go in and make adjustments to the data. Cool.
Due to NDAs, unfortunately, we cannot provide an example, like an actual example. So we brought to you today a use case, which is actually very common with us and our company. Let's just say we are talking about a retail company and it's a financial project. So we actually have the data, it's great, but what is the next step? So what is the actual problem that we are trying to solve here? Let's say this company uses many Excel files, they do their planning offline, everyone is confused, there are version 5, version 6 of the same Excel file, and they do manual consolidation offline also, which is, let's be honest, very time consuming and also drains all of the resources that the company has. So what we are trying to do is that we are bringing all the data together and create this one source of truth that they can rely on, where they can plan, where they can get their reports, where they can get their financial data, and then eventually we do it in this one digital planning system, which is Anaplan. And I'm sure a lot of you have also seen this and experienced this, but this is the reality that many, many companies are still living in today, is that it's 2025, we are talking about AI today, but a lot of companies are still not digitalized enough to have their own online data hub, for example. They are still planning offline, which is very time consuming, and it's also, there is just a big gap between wanting to implement AI and using offline Excels. So what do we do as analysts, basically? Usually what happens is that we receive large and messy data sets, and thanks to Gabor and Gabor's classes, we were able to learn how to clean, structure, and validate that data, and we actually do that within Anaplan. And Ian is going to talk about it later, but it's not that different from coding and actually creating a report in Power BI. It's just putting it together into one software. And then once we have the clean data, we sit down with the client and through workshops we define what they actually need, and then we make recommendations about how can they make their business processes more effective, let it be supply chain, workforce planning, or financial planning. And we were just joking about it the other day, is that we think the golden statement for today is that data work is just as much consulting and communication as it is technical. So we might sit here talking about Python packages and we all understand that, but we need to make sure that all the key stakeholders understand what is data and what is AI and how should we use that eventually. And yeah, a little
Yeah.
bit about Anaplan.
Yeah, so I'll take it from here. A little bit about Anaplan. We have, of course, a front and a back end, where in the back end, we are implementing a coding language that is relatively intuitive so that business users can also at some point have their own people going in and building with Anaplan. So we're in the back end, bringing in data, we're implementing the business logic back here, bringing through the financial data, for example, in our use case. And this is where we build all of the grids that would then be brought to the front end for reporting purposes, providing a reporting structure that is relatively intuitive and perhaps also familiar for users on the visualization side, but as well as manual input grids for users to go in and make adjustments. Cool. Now, this Data Jamboree has a theme of AI, and we wanted to discuss AI and how that looks in our company and the importance of AI and the role it plays. I think one of the key things to take away from our side is that AI supports our work, but it doesn't replace responsibility. This is something that's very important. We have our own internal AI. You can see here, its name is Valley. And we have our own internal AI that was built by Volantic for the purpose of reducing time with manual work in different areas. But it is a controlled environment designed for internal data safety purposes. So this helps us in this way. But the key is that humans are still defining the business logic, still validating the results, and still making the decisions. What's really important is that face-to-face interaction with the clients, and that is something that we're maintaining while AI is indeed supporting our work.
Yeah, we were trying to answer that question that often pops up, is AI really taking our jobs, or what's going to happen in 5 years? Yes, and we just wanted to say thank you in a way that wanted to circle back to CU, and since we are very fresh graduates, as you could say, we wanted to take a second and just look back of what business analytics program and what CU actually helped us with. And there are several soft skills and hard skills that you can read off the slide. But personally, what CU taught me is, I think Alex also made that point, which was very true, is that you have to adapt and learn really fast, like extremely fast. Especially consulting, it's a sector where you have to, there are strict deadlines and you have to react quickly. You need to leverage all your skill set. There is always some pressure. And that's one of the things that I wanted to highlight. And the other thing is what I mentioned earlier is we need to be able to present these complex projects very simple so that we can keep all the project stakeholders engaged, because eventually they're going to be the ones that support your projects, who's going to finance your projects, and you want them to be able to understand what's going on. And we have these very complex projects, and we need to get the message through. So these are my personal examples, but Ian?
Yeah, maybe I'd jump in with, the topic of coding came up in our last talk, and how important is coding today, learning coding, what is the significance of that? And I think one of the key takeaways that I would have from CEU is we did learn a lot of coding, and we also learned how to understand code and how to think in a way of data thinking, coding thinking. And this is something that's very, very critical and important because there's so much changing. And you can get something to work with code, but also understanding how to get it to work efficiently, I think, is very important. And this logic that we learned at CEU, I would say, benefits us on a daily basis with how we implement different code, how we can make it efficient, but also understanding how to read it. And also CEU offered the ability to work with real live data sets, giving us an understanding and visualization of how things are looking in the real world. And I think this is also something that I would say is key and critical to what we have done today. Super. Thank you so much.